I think it was assumed by many, both fans and sports media alike, that heading into this year's NBA free agency period, two teams that were going to be very active, two teams that were going to have a lot of spending power, and two teams that were ultimately going to be very successful and potentially make a big impact and a big splash were going to be the New York Knicks and the Los Angeles Lakers. There were several reasons for this belief. Number one is the fact that they're the two biggest media markets in this country. And in a lot of ways, in theory, it would seem incredibly appealing if you're an athlete to want to go to a New York or an LA, especially if you're looking at opportunities to become a star outside of basketball and other endorsement and revenue generating types of opportunities. Number two, these teams were going to have plenty of salary cap space available where if you were a top flight star, they were going to be able to pay you like a top flight star to go to one of these big time markets where they were also going to offer you the potential opportunity to be the man, either 1A or 1B. So you were going to be treated like a big part of the fold. So that was another important factor. And then a lot of people looked at it and said that these teams, based off of the people involved, whether that was the Lakers and Mitch Kupchak or the Knicks with Phil Jackson, that these were big enough names, important enough names, that they were going to ultimately, for different reasons, be able to find a way to get the job done. And then when you look at the Knicks, they had Carmelo Anthony, so they have one star that seems to like playing in New York, so maybe he would have some type of recruiting power. And then when you go to the Lakers, for whatever reason I don't know, maybe some people thought that Kobe Bryant had to some type of sway and somebody would actually want to come play with him. But however, as free agency has already kicked off and gotten underway, we can clearly see that what was perceived to be the reality for these two organizations heading into free agency is anything but. A lot of marquee names aren't wanting to meet with one or both of these teams, and most of them aren't going to sign with these teams. In fact, none of the truly marquee names will probably end up signing with the New York Knicks or the Los Angeles Lakers, which will leave a lot of people wondering what happened and ultimately asking the question why. Well, I'm going to try and figure it out the best I can as to why both the Knicks and the Lakers seem to be swinging and missing relatively big time when it comes to this year's NBA free agency period. And I'll start off with the New York Knicks. I think the first big hurdle, obstacle, challenge that they have is that they've been a mess for so long that when you're on the outside looking in, why would you want to really go to that situation? I mean, that's a fair, legitimate question. They've been so bad for so long. If you're somebody like, let's say, a LaMarcus Aldridge as an example, would you really want to go play there potentially for the next 4 or 5 years and be a part of what could still be a really bad situation at that time? What type of guarantee do you have that it would continue to be anything other than a mess of a situation and a bad team? They've been a mess for so long and bad for so long. What makes you think that it's ultimately going to get any better? Especially when you throw into the next component into this equation, and that's Carmelo Anthony. You know, if you're going to the Knicks and you're somebody like, let's say, a LaMarcus Aldridge or somebody like that, a top-tier free agent, you know that as long as Carmelo Anthony's there in New York, he's going to be the alpha dog. He's going to be the one. He's going to be the one that wants to take the most shots. He's going to be the one that gets the most attention. You're ultimately going to be playing on Carmelo's team. And is a Carmelo Anthony the type of guy, if you're a big-name free agent, a star yourself, that you really want to hitch your wagon to that star the next few years, knowing that Carmelo Anthony is already in his early 30s, he has some injury problems. You know, you're looking at a guy who could see a steep decline in his game relatively quickly. Do you want to be playing with a has-been Carmelo Anthony 2 or 3 years down the road in a mess of a situation? And then when you look at the New York Knicks, what the hell else do they have? Even if you are a big-name free agent or another big-name free agent comes along with you, what else is there really on this Knicks roster? You know, I love Porzingis as a prospect, but he's not going to make a big-time contribution right away. If you're a big-name free agent, do you want to sit there and wait 2 or 3 years and hope that this guy develops into the guy that he could be? You know, what, is a Jerry Grant really going to get you excited? A Clay Anthony early? I mean, potentially nice NBA role players, but when you look at it, there's just not much else there. And when you go off of the history of what the Knicks have been for so long and how much dysfunction there is, would you really want to go play in an organization owned by James Dolan? Furthermore, would you want to hitch your wagon to the Carmelo Anthony train for the next several years? I'm not that surprised that a lot of these big-name free agents are just using the Knicks as leverage and meeting with them and then moving on to somewhere else that's a better opportunity, because most opportunities are better. And then when you look at the Los Angeles Lakers, first and foremost, you have to look at the Kobe Bryant effect. I mean, seriously, it's no surprise to anybody that Kobe Bryant's not the easiest guy to be around. He's not the easiest guy to play with. And if you're a big-name star with your own big-name ego to go along with it, why the hell would you want to go into a situation where you have a clearly past his prime, semi-washed-up Kobe Bryant coming off of years of injuries that have shortened seasons and ended seasons prematurely, trying to sit there and jack up 300 shots a game so that way he could cement his own legacy in his last year going down shooting? Why would you want to be a party of that for 1 year? Even if it was just for 1 year, that still means it's 1 year. That's a lot of time. That's 6, 7 months of having to be around Kobe Bryant every day. And furthermore, knowing how Kobe Bryant is and how Kobe Bryant is going to be, why the hell would you want to play in that type of situation with that type of guy? I mean, seriously. And then you look at what's happened with other guys in recent time. You look at Paul Gasol. You know, there's a big reason why his brother Mark's not that interested in the organization, because he didn't like the way they treated his brother at the tail end of his tenure there. And then you look at a guy like Dwight Howard. The Los Angeles Lakers and Kobe Bryant were so bad that Dwight Howard, the idiot that he is, the immature fuck that he is, turned down more money over a longer period of time to go take less money to play for the Houston Rockets and play with James Harden. Think about that for a second. Just think about that. He wanted to play with James Harden over Kobe Bryant. Dwight Howard, of all people, took less money to leave LA. And don't think other players don't notice this. Don't think other players don't take note of this. Other players don't see this. When a guy like Dwight Howard's leaving and going somewhere else for less money, that speaks volumes and tells you all the hell you need to know. And then furthermore, when you look at the situation, knowing the fact that a guy like Dwight Howard was so eager to leave town, he took less money to go to Houston, that Paul Gasol wasn't exactly treated well at the end of his tenure, the fact that you're coming into a situation where you know you're going to have to deal with that egomaniacal fuck Kobe Bryant for at least one season, and who knows if more, you go beyond that and you say, what else is there? What? Yeah, second overall pick, D'Angelo Russell is probably going to be a star. Jordan Clarkson, nice NBA player. You know, Julius Randle, their first-round pick last year, missed pretty much all of his rookie year with an injury. What is he going to be? I mean, it's one of these things that what the hell else do you have there? The Lakers aren't a good team. And even with Kobe Bryant last year, they still weren't a good team. And at times it seemed like they played better without him. Why the hell would you want to be a big-name star where you go there and you say long-term, yeah, I'll be the number one, and maybe I got D'Angelo Russell to play with, but most of the rest of this team is freaking scrubs. Swaggy P's a character, but he ain't that much of a player. I mean, so seriously, again, why in the hell would you want to go sign with the Lakers? But I think what it ultimately comes down to is this long-held belief that the bigger media markets are always the most important and they always matter the most. You always hear it when they talk about sports. And to a degree, I'm not saying it's wrong that when teams in cities like New York, LA, Chicago are good, a league is better off for it. I don't totally dispute that based off of market size and the potential interest from those larger population centers. It makes some sense. But you don't have to have those teams in those cities be good for your league to survive or even thrive. You look at this year's NBA Finals. You had two what you would classify as smaller market teams for sure in Cleveland and Golden State. And yet all the while, it was the highest rated finals they had ever had on ABC. There was no LA team, no Chicago team, no New York team, no Dallas team, no Houston team, nothing like that at all. And yet here you are. You've got the highest rated finals you've had in many, many years. And the simple fact of the matter is that the New York and LA media markets just aren't as important in the sporting landscape, and in particular in basketball, as they once were. You know, you're looking at the fact that some of the biggest stars in the game today, just to name a few, LeBron James, Stephen Curry, Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, Anthony Davis, James Harden. These are all guys that have become big stars outside of those major media markets. You could say the guy that plays in the biggest media market of all of them is James Harden. But it's still not a New York or an LA or even a Chicago. It's an entirely different world. It's an entirely different media and sporting reality. You know, it's not the days of you're lucky to see this star player for this team a couple of times a year because it happens to be the NBC game of the week or CBS game of the week, let's say. These guys are on cable. They're all over the place. They're all over the internet. They're all over social media. If somebody can play, they're going to find you. If somebody can play, people will have plenty of avenues to see you. So it's just not as important anymore to be in New York or LA. You know, LeBron's never played in New York or LA. Has that hurt his opportunity to make money outside of basketball? Most certainly I would say not. Is it hurting Stephen Curry? Has it hurt Kevin Durant or Russell Westbrook? Or is it going to hurt guys like James Harden and Anthony Davis long term? Absolutely not. The whole thing of New York and LA in terms of their size and what opportunities they provide outside of basketball is incredibly overrated when it comes to NBA athletes, and that's clearly evident. And furthermore, when you're talking about at a time where the kind of, you know, short-term attention span, quick fix type of championship chasing is all the rage, championships are the most important currency. And if you're a big-time star, why the hell would you want to go to the Lakers or the Knicks knowing that they're about sniffing a championship anytime soon? For Christ's sakes, yes, the Lakers have won a lot of championships through their tenure. But they most certainly aren't trending upwards in that direction. And the Knicks, we don't even need to get started on that. And then when you take into effect that when it comes to the NBA, based off of the economic realities, is that the money is pretty much the same everywhere. So therefore, the market size doesn't matter all that much. It might matter a little bit in terms of the amount of money you can go into the luxury tax for, but that's about it. But when you're talking about teams that all have $25, $30 million in cap space, you know, who does it matter if it's coming from an LA, a New York, or a Milwaukee? It doesn't. You're talking about the best opportunity, the best fit, looking at organizations that you feel comfortable with, teams and players that you feel comfortable playing with. So when you see guys not going to these areas like New York or LA, you shouldn't be all that surprised. It's kind of this old school philosophy that a lot of us have, both media and fans alike, that when all things are equal, these players are always going to want to go play and live in that bigger market. And that's not true. Not everybody wants to live in New York. You know, why would you want to sit there and live your winters in the freaking cold of New York? Or just New York in general? Or live in the smog-infested areas of LA? I mean, seriously. You know, if you're a guy like LaMarcus Aldridge and you've got the chance to maybe live in a Phoenix or a San Antonio, that probably has a lot more appeal than living in an LA, frankly. You know, and in terms of other guys, would you rather play in a Florida or in a New York? Again, when the money's equal and championship currency is the most important thing, New York and LA just aren't bringing what to the table that a lot of people think they are and presume that they do. And especially when you look at most of the biggest stars in the league now don't play in New York or LA, it just shows you that that media market size doesn't matter anymore. So not only should we not be surprised that big-name free agents are spurning the Knicks and Lakers in free agency and just using them as leverage, we shouldn't be surprised, that this will continue to be a trend for years on going forward.